More than 100,000 American workers just lost their jobs. And it didn't happen because of China, robots, or jobs moving overseas. It happened because of a new rule from Washington, D.C. On June 4. Former President Donald Trump signed a rule. It added a 50% tax on aluminum. This kind of tax is called a tariff. Trump said it would protect American businesses. But instead, it caused big problems very quickly. Factories closed. Contracts were canceled. Workers stopped getting paid. This is not just something on the news. It affects people's rent, savings, and future. So why is a rule made to help America actually hurting it? Let's explain. In March 2025, the Trump administration made a surprise move. It removed Canada's special permission to sell aluminum and steel to the US without extra tax. Now, Canada had to pay a 25% tax. This was done under a law called Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act. Then, 3 months later, Trump made another big move. On June 4, 2025, he raised the tax from 25% to 50%. He said this was needed to protect national security. He wanted to support U.S. factories. He also wanted to stop other countries from taking American jobs. On his Truth Social account, Trump wrote in all capital letters, "I will never let American jobs be sold out to foreign interests." 50% tariff effective immediately. This was not the first time Trump used this kind of rule. In 2018, he did something similar. Some factories reopened back then. But many closed again later because materials became too expensive. The 2025 rule was stronger. And it came at a time when the US economy was already weak. Reuters said the new tax had no end date. This means it could last for a long time. Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo spoke soon after. She said it's good to make more products in the US, but she warned that the government must not hurt other industries or supply chains. Senator Ron Wyden also shared a warning. He said higher taxes could make things more expensive for American factories. Lawmakers from both political parties also spoke out. Especially in Michigan, Ohio, and Texas. These states depend on manufacturing jobs. Senator J.D. Vance, a Trump supporter, said something important. He said the U.S. must be careful. If we try to protect one part of the economy, we might hurt another part. Still, the reason for this tax seemed political. Trump was planning Phase 2 of his economic plan. He wanted to win back support in Rust Belt states. He used strong trade rules and emotional speeches. The 50% tax looked good on camera. But it was more of a political tool than an economic plan. Industry leaders were worried. The Aluminum Association spoke out quickly. They support making products in the US, but they warned that most aluminum jobs are not in smelting. Most jobs are in manufacturing, transportation, and assembly. These areas would suffer from higher costs. The group said something shocking. For every one job saved in smelting, up to 16 jobs could be lost in other areas. And it wasn't just factories that were worried. Home builders, car part companies, beer makers, and airplane companies also spoke up. The American Beverage Association warned about prices. Aluminum cans could get more expensive. Beer, soda, and canned food might cost more. Wall Street also reacted fast. After Trump's announcement, company stock prices fell. Ford, GM, Boeing, and Ball Corporation dropped by 2% to 5%. Bank of America experts said this move might help short-term. But it could cause big problems in the future. The rule also upset America's close friends. Canada, the European Union, and South Korea were surprised. They were unhappy about the sudden decision. It reminded them of the trade war in 2018. Now they are thinking about fighting back. They might add their own tariffs or complain to the World Trade Organization. But Trump didn't change his mind. In interviews the next week, he said the angry reactions showed that his plan was working. He told Newsmax, "If they're screaming, that means we're doing something right." His supporters saw this as a sign of strength. But experts said it felt like the same story from before, just bigger and riskier this time. For millions of American workers, especially in the Midwest, the same question came back again. Is this really helping, or is it just making things worse? The results came fast. Just a few weeks after the 50% aluminum tariff began, reports showed how much damage it was causing. Alcoa, one of the biggest aluminum companies in the US, warned that the new policy could destroy 20,000 smelting jobs. They also said it could hurt 80,000 other jobs in transport, repairs, building parts, and factory work. That's around 100,000 jobs lost in total. Independent experts agreed. They said the effects would spread through the economy and hurt local towns and communities. These weren't just numbers. They were real people losing paychecks, real businesses suffering, and towns losing their economic security. Why were so many jobs at risk? Because the cost to make aluminum was going up fast. In April 2025, the average price of electricity for factories in the US was 8.21 cents per kilowatt hour. That was higher than the 7.79 cents the year before. This might not sound like much, but aluminum smelting uses a lot of electricity. It takes about 14,821 kilowatt hours to make just 1 ton of aluminum. So even small changes in electricity prices make a big difference. Meanwhile, electricity in Canada was much cheaper. In Quebec, industrial users paid as little as 2.48 to 3.94 cents per kilowatt hour. This gave Canadian aluminum makers a huge cost advantage. That made US aluminum smelting extremely expensive, almost impossible to do without losing money. At the same time, US aluminum prices went up even more. In the Midwest, prices jumped 12% to 24 cents per pound. That forced US factories to pay much more than Canadian companies. So the tariff that was supposed to protect US businesses ended up making things worse. It raised prices for factories and made life harder for consumers. What does this mean in real life? Imagine a local factory that makes aluminum cans or home siding. Suddenly, their aluminum costs go up by 12%. They only have 2 choices: lose money or fire workers to save money. So, many companies started laying off workers. In cities across the Rust Belt, entire shifts disappeared. Truck builders, can makers, and airplane parts suppliers all had to cut jobs. Even in Canada, labor unions reported job losses caused by the US tariffs. That showed the damage was spreading across borders. But it didn't stop with jobs. The energy market also changed. As big factories used less power, electricity demand dropped. This caused a problem. When fewer people use electricity, the fixed costs of running the power grid get divided among fewer users. So the price of electricity goes up even more. That created a dangerous cycle. Higher tariffs led to less production. Less production led to higher electricity prices. Higher electricity prices made production even harder. In energy-hungry industries, paying more than your competitors is a big problem. That's why Alcoa's CEO, Bill Oppinger, told investors, "You can't start a smelter with just promises. You need cheap, stable power." He wasn't just giving general advice. He was saying that US aluminum production no longer made economic sense. In most US states, power contracts are short-term and prices change often. But in Canada, especially Quebec, companies can get long-term power deals. These deals give factories the same low price for years, sometimes decades. That helps companies invest in big projects like aluminum smelters. In the US, those kinds of deals don't exist in most states. But in Quebec, they've been normal for many years. Their power prices are often locked in between 2 and 4 cents per kilowatt hour. Canadian aluminum smelters get long-term electricity deals at low prices, sometimes for more than 20 years. This gives them a big advantage. Meanwhile, US aluminum producers don't have that option. They face rising electricity costs, and it's getting harder to compete. In US states where aluminum smelters used to operate, energy prices are going up. Average electricity rates for factories have gone above 10 cents per kilowatt-hour in some areas. That means millions of dollars in extra yearly costs for each aluminum plant. And these costs hurt company profits directly. The result? In late April, many U.S. smelters stopped hiring new workers and paused plans to grow. New aluminum smelters in Minnesota and Texas were put on hold, even though global demand for low-carbon aluminum was rising. Other industries that use a lot of metal also began to shrink. Factories in Michigan, Ohio, and Pennsylvania started cutting jobs, sending workers home without pay, or canceling supply orders. Economists who study local job data saw a clear drop in factory employment in April and May. That timeline matched exactly when the U.S. tariffs began. But the damage didn't stop at jobs. Local governments lost tax money. People spent less money in stores. And small towns had to cut funding for public services. When a big factory shuts down, it's not just jobs that disappear. The whole system suffers. Schools, shops, and hospitals lose support. This sudden change in U.S. policy made Canada respond right away. On March 5, the Canadian government went to the World Trade Organization to challenge the U.S. tariffs. Ambassador Nadia Theodore said, "The U.S. decision leaves us with no choice but to respond to protect Canadian interests." In just a few weeks, Canada officially filed a complaint with the WTO. It was called DS 635. That started a legal battle over the tariffs. At the same time, Canada's aluminum exporters looked for new markets. Business leaders and government planners started rerouting shipments away from the U.S. Some companies started selling more to Europe and Asia. Others looked at Mexico and ASEAN countries for new trade deals. From May 2024 to May 2025, Canada's exports to the U.S. dropped by 10 percentage points. Now only 68% of their aluminum exports go to the U.S. This didn't happen in one day. It was a major shift in Canada's trade strategy. But Canada didn't stop there. Prime Minister Mark Carney, who took office earlier in the year, took quick action. In June, he warned the U.S. that if they didn't talk, Canada would fight back. He also blocked U.S. companies from winning government contracts in Canada. These were serious steps, not just words. Canada also set up a $1 billion support fund for its steel and aluminum industries. The goal was to protect Canadian companies from the harm caused by U.S. tariffs. Then, Canada hit back with its own tariffs. These targeted American products like metals, cars, and alcohol. The message was clear. Canada was fighting to make the U.S. negotiate. Pressure from other countries also started growing. Australia's Trade Minister, Don Farrell, said the U.S. tariffs were harmful and hinted that Australia might also go to the WTO. The European Union held back from hitting the US but made it clear they were ready if needed. Japan and South Korea, who were already upset about past US tariffs, quietly pressured Washington to back off. At the same time, they updated their plans in case things got worse. In Canada, business leaders warned the US that these actions would hurt everyone. They said US tariffs wouldn't just damage Canadian companies but would also hurt the whole North American supply chain. They also pointed out something important. The US said tariffs were for national security. But Canadian aluminum is made using clean hydroelectric power, which is 75% cheaper than US power. Even with the tariffs, Canadian aluminum was still cheaper. This meant the US plan didn't work. Cutting Canadian supply didn't help US producers, because they still couldn't match Canada's low energy prices or large production. This became clear in global trade numbers. In March, aluminum imports from the United Arab Emirates jumped to 68,560 metric tons. That's a big increase from just 16,124 tons a year earlier. This shows US buyers were desperate. They couldn't rely on Canadian aluminum anymore, and US producers couldn't meet the demand. So, they started buying more from other countries. In the end, high tariffs didn't protect US jobs. They raised prices, caused layoffs, and pushed away close allies like Canada. Experts now say that real solutions need real investment. That includes better energy systems and strong infrastructure. Some say the US should lower Canadian aluminum tariffs to 20%. Others suggest tax breaks for companies that use clean or recycled aluminum. But the big question remains: should America keep building trade walls, or should it create smarter energy incentives? Let us know what you think in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Deep State so you don't miss what's coming next.